search of Orisha rivers abroad. And so a lot of times we have Yoruba devotees here in the US and other places who ask, well, if one of the Orisha lives here in Nigeria, like how do we know there's Orisha in my backyard at the river around the corner or whatever? So we thought that that was a profound question that we wanted to answer through our experience. And I won't ruin the surprise for you, but spoil it for you, but that's pretty much sums up our discussion today.
So first we want to kind of just discuss the sacredness of water. In all religious traditions, mostly that I've come across, but specifically in the indigenous religious traditions, you see a propensity of gathering and healing at water, at the site of water, whether it is the ocean, a river, your bathtub. But where water is, and that comes mostly because in reality, our first initiation into the world is through birth. And as you might imagine, most of what amniotic fluid is made of is water. Our bodies are 70% water or more. The planet is 70% water or more. So water is one of the foremost ways in which we clean ourselves, and heal ourselves. And so as an African American, we see the baptism. Most of our ancestors, once they, came through slavery or came into slavery, converted to Christianity. And even in Christianity, you see water. You see water being used as a healing modality with baptism. In the Jewish tradition, which is older than Christianity, you see the mikvah, by which, at different times of the year, folks go and bathe. This picture here is from Kumbh Mela, which is a Hindu ritual, water ritual. In fact, they say the largest religious gathering in the world. Last year or this year, they expected 80 million people to come to the water in India and again bathe and cleanse themselves. And then, although this is a picture of a sweat lodge, and although many of us might not think of that as a water ritual, it is in fact a water ritual because you pour water onto the rocks in order to induce sweat, which again is a cleansing modality. So, as African Americans or as African people in the diaspora, we look as traditionalists for water, bodies of water that we can go to, bodies of water, and we want to be able to identify which Orisha live, which Orisha live there. So to follow on to what Jay said, our question is really, how do you identify? How are we going to identify? We notice that a lot of times when you deal with the waters, people say all of the water is oceans, and that has been what has happened. Oh, you moved it. I'm sorry. So, before we move on, among traditionalists, water serves three main purposes. Of course, it is a vehicle for communication with Oludumare, with Orisha, with our ancestors, and with our friends in heaven, our Egbe. It's a cleansing tool, and it's a symbol for our interconnectedness, not just with ourselves, not just with our angelic bodies, but also with the planet that we inhabit. So our central question was, how do we identify the water? And I'm going to let my lovely Yeye take over and explain how we go about identifying bodies of water in the New World.
First, greetings to everyone. Greetings to all the ancestors that are present here in the room and all the shrines and all the home shrines that are represented here. And greetings to all of our elders. Greetings to all, thank you, to see my family, I haven't seen in such a long time. So I want to say thank you and welcome everyone to our presentation, and thank you for welcoming us to Harvard. Again, how to identify the river Orisha of the Yoruba people, the various river Orisha that we have in political, traditional Yoruba land. I'm not going to say Nigeria, because Nigeria is just a political boundary. Spirit has no boundaries. So first of all, we have, of course, Oya, Yansalo, we have Oba, we have Yeye Oshun, we have Yeye Yemoja. Traditionally, Yemoja is a river, but in the diaspora, we learn to worship her as the ocean. Now we have Olokun, both the female and the male aspect. We also have the Ogun River, even though Ogun is not a female divinity, but the Yemoja Orisha people worship her in the Ogun River. But also when we cross Benin, we have the Mami Wata River. And the Mami Wata River opens up into the ocean, which is my feeling that in the diaspora, how we learn to receive Yemoja as the ocean instead of a river. But even in Ghana, in the political realm of Ghana, Mami Wata is a river. We also have Nana Surgery, who is also a river. We have the Tano deity, which is also a river. So we have many river divinities. Traditionally, they say in Ifa culture that there was at least 164 river divinities alone. These are just the main ones that we remember. So as our elders are leaving, as our elders are going, and as we become more and more disconnected to our traditional selves, because our ancestors will come back and teach us, we just have to be willing and open enough to receive and trust what they're telling us. But as our elders are leaving, they're leaving with this knowledge, they're leaving with this information. Because even my godfather says that there are so many, you can travel through the rural villages now, and up country, down country, all over traditional Africa, and many of the shrines have been abandoned, and many of the people don't even remember who their patron divinities were.
So I'm not going to explain it, but let me just come here. So moving from traditional Orisha worship in Nigeria, we have a large number of people in the Americas and in the diaspora who are also taking on these spiritual and cultural traditions. And my initial comment was that they're saying, how can we worship here in the U.S.? So we see that they're gathering at their own bodies of water. I first showed in Atlanta, there's a huge Orisha worship community, Ifa community there in Atlanta. But we also see here in Asheville, North Carolina, there's a small community. And this was their first Oshun festival in Asheville. And so the worship has emerged everywhere. We know that we stand on the shoulders of a lot of our Cuban family across the water who have really kept the traditions alive during the transatlantic slave trade. They were able to maintain a lot of the traditions in ways that we were not, specific to the Orisha. And they worship at their bodies of water as well there. I believe this is for Yemoja, which is huge in the diaspora, but it's even huger in Brazil. So we have Festa de Yemoja here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where thousands of people meet. I think I read along the lines of 30,000 devotees in Brazil practice festivals in honor of Yemoja, where they go to the ocean. And you see here they're giving their offerings right at the ocean. It's huge. I mean, there's more people than this video will depict. We know also that the traditions in Brazil are very closely related to the Orisha worship in Benin Republic. We were discussing that. And case in point, Olokun is a huge divinity from the Benin Republic. So even though they say Yemoja, we know they're going to the ocean. Olokun, the big water, the owner of the big water, to worship. Here is a wonderful clip from Trinidad. In the Caribbean islands in Trinidad, they've been also another area where they've been able to maintain a lot of the spiritual traditions through the slave trade. And this was a film from their first Oshun festival. I think it was in 1991, the author of the video said. And we thought that this was really powerful. If you bear with us for a second, We want to show you how the Orisha came to visit them in this video. So they actually went to the water, they laid their offerings there, and they began to sing. And the river come down, he said, it started to come down. Everything. So do we ask, like, was Oshun present? Like, yeah. So she was like, all of that is mine, thank you. And we thank you. Yeah, and so she took all the offerings, they said in the video, she took the table even. She came to meet them where they were. So if there's ever any doubt, we know that the spirits will show up and make it plain for us that when we come to greet them, that they're here. This is from our home area, Baltimore, Maryland. This was an Olokun celebration for one of my good friends. This was a healing ritual we did for the Baba, who's in the middle, who was suffering with terminal illness. He has since transitioned, but that was a great time. And then Philadelphia, PA, Dr. Metzger is from Philly. We know that Philly has one of the largest stateside Orisha celebrations. One thing that's very special about Philly is that the city of Philadelphia has actually agreed to allow us, is that true? Is that her? Has actually allowed participants of the Odunde Festival to deposit their offerings for Oshun into the river. So you see in some of the video, you'll see the police cars and everything, like they're present. And it was interesting because I was not able to find any video of people at the river. You do? You do, but I thought it was, I know. Am I out of time? I was supposed to look. Okay. At the river, but I thought it was powerful that people honored those traditions and allowed them to go to the river without really making it a public thing. I'm not gonna. So we're gonna get to our point.
Okay, in 2008, my Yeye Oshun Lagos, Chief Osunfunmike Nias, came to visit Baltimore because I'm always bragging about our area. We don't have a problem with police. We don't have a problem with activist groups. We can go and worship our divinities wherever and whenever we need to without making compromise. And this is one of the ceremonies that we did at the one of the Patapsco parks called Avalon, and we're giving offerings to Oshun.
So let me just say that we went with Yeye Lagos to the river. We were planning this gathering because she was here and we wanted everyone to go and experience her healing work and everything. And so we were like, come on, let's go. We go before the festival, we go, we take her there. And we were like, this is going to be where we have Oshun. And she was like, yeah, no, this is not Oshun.
Yeah, she said basically what had happened was, you know, we went to a river that we thought was beautiful, and Yeye did two things. She looked at it, she picked up one of the otas, she dropped it, and said, this is not Oshun. We said, well, who is it then? You know, and she said, okay, time to take you to class. Sit down and listen. You know, and she described to us the characteristics of how you identify, we're just specifically talking about rivers. How do you identify, well, we're talking about Orisha, in the river. Every river is sacred, but every river does not belong to Oshun. There are certain colors that we look for, not just for Oshun, but for Yemoja, for Oya, and we have most of them we've been able to identify in the Maryland DMV area. Different Orisha belong to different rivers. The temperature. So for example, when she picked up the ota, she was checking for a certain temperature. The stones, the color of the ota, the shape of the ota, all those things, they speak to which Orisha this particular river belongs to. So, and the movement of the river itself. For example, the Oya River doesn't move the same as an Oshun River. The Yemoja River doesn't move the same as an Oba River. So she took us to school that day. I mean, some things we cannot share with the general public, but yes, if you're initiated by permission of your godparents, yes, we can share that with you at lunchtime.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we're gonna kind of wrap it up here, but this is a picture of the Oba River in Nigeria in the background, and the river where we were actually at, where you saw the women, was our Patapsco River here in Maryland. And so this is also an Oba River, so it shares many of the same traits, and we were trying to show you some of the stones and everything You can see they're kind of ragged and shaped the way they are. But yeah, so the importance of this was that we needed to understand that Oshun, while she does own the cool water and the cool healing water and rivers, she's a principal river divinity, but not all of the rivers are just for Oshun. They're not always all her sacred space. So worshipers, and then the other important thing is the worshipers in the diaspora can now find places outside of Yoruba land where these Orisha will show up and be present and inhabit. We thought it was very important to have a chief Oshun priest from Lagos come and affirm the Orisha live here. This is Oba's place here. So we can use this information to connect to our own sacred land and the Orisha and divinities that live here.